Good morning or good afternoon, whichever it is. Good to be with you guys again. Everybody's got their teeth brushed. We're ready to go. You're being helpful and sweet for mom and dad, I'm sure. I'm certain of that. I would want nothing less. If you might need to have a whole flip card system at home. I'm not sure. I hope nobody would be getting flipped though. So when we left, and Because of Winn Dixie by Kate DiCamillo, when we left with chapter 17, Miss Franny Block had told Opal a story about her great-grandfather, Litmus W. Block, and that he made candy, the Litmus lozenge. And do you remember what she said it tasted like? It tasted like root beer and strawberry, but also had, what was that special flavor it had in it? Sorrow. Can you imagine trying to add sorrow or sadness to a piece of candy? I don't know how you would do that. I don't think it could really be done. But that's what they said the Litmus lozenge tasted like, was adding sorrow to it. So she tasted it and said, if you remember, Opal said what caused her sadness was that she had to leave her friends in Watley, that the Dewberry boys were not very kind to her, but more than anything, that her mama had left her when she was little, and she wished more than anything that she could just tell her some of the stories she had heard. So that made Opal very sad. So we're going to go ahead and read chapter 18 today and see what happens in here with Opal, and we'll see what Winn Dixie's up to. A couple words. We have the word mention, which means just to talk about something briefly. The word idle, which means kind of at a standstill. If it's idle, it's at a standstill. And the word melancholy, I love that word, just sounds kind of musical to me. Melancholy, but it means sad, like a kind of sadness. Okay? All right, chapter 18, we're on page 118. Gosh, I can't believe we're getting close to the end of it now. Just, wow. I always hate when the book's over. All right, chapter 18. When we got to Gloria Dump's, I told her I had 2 surprises for her and asked which one did she want first, the small one or the big one. The small one, said Gloria. I handed her the Litmus lozenge, and she moved it around in her hands, feeling it. Remember, her eyes aren't very good, so she's feeling it to see what it is. Candy? She said. Yes, ma'am, I told her. It's called a Litmus lozenge. Oh, Lord, yes. I remember these candies. My daddy used to eat them. She unwrapped the Litmus lozenge and put it in her mouth and nodded her head. Do you like it? I asked her. Mm-hmm. She nodded her head slowly. It tastes sweet, but it also tastes like people leaving. You mean sad? I asked. Does it taste like sorrow to you? That's right, she said. It tastes sorrowful, but sweet. Now, what's surprise number 2? A book, I said. A book? Uh-huh, I said. I'm going to read it out loud to you. It's called Gone with the Wind. Miss Franny says it's a great book. It's about the Civil War. Do you know about the Civil War? I've heard it mentioned a time or 2, said Gloria, nodding her head and sucking on her Litmus lozenge. It's going to take us a long time to read this book, I told her. There are 1,037 pages. Ooh-wee, said Gloria. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her hands on her stomach. We best get started then. And so I read the first chapter of Gone with the Wind out loud to Gloria Dump. I read it loud enough to keep her ghosts away, and Gloria listened to it good. And when I was done, she said it was the best surprise she had ever had, and she couldn't wait to hear chapter 2. That night, I gave the preacher his Litmus lozenge right before he kissed me goodnight. What's this? He said. It's some candy that Miss Franny's great-grandfather invented. It's called a Litmus lozenge. The preacher unwrapped it and put it in his mouth, and after a minute he started rubbing his nose and nodding his head. Do you like it? I asked him. Has a peculiar flavor. Root beer? I said. Well, something else. Strawberry? Well, that too, but there's still something else. It's odd. I could see the preacher getting further and further away. He was hunching up his shoulders and lowering his chin and getting ready to pull his head inside his shell. It almost tastes a little melancholy, he said. Melancholy? What's that? sad, said the preacher. He rubbed his nose some more. It makes me think of your mother. Winn Dixie sniffed at the candy wrapper in the preacher's hands. It tastes sad, he said and sighed. Must be a bad batch. No, I told him. I sat up in bed. That's the way it's supposed to taste. Litmus came back from the war and his whole family was dead. His daddy died from fighting and his mama and sisters died from a disease and the Yankees burned his house down. And Litmus was sad, very sad. And what he wanted more than anything in the whole world was something sweet. So he built a candy factory and made Litmus lozenges. And he put all the sad he was feeling into the candy. My goodness, said the preacher. Winn Dixie snuffed the candy wrapper out of the preacher's hand and started chewing on it. Give me that, I said to Winn Dixie, but he wouldn't give it up. I had to reach inside his mouth and pull it out. You can't eat candy wrappers, I told him. The preacher cleared his throat. I thought he was going to say something important, maybe tell me another thing he remembered about my mama, but what he said was, Opal, I had a talk with Miss Dewberry the other day. She said that Stevie says you called him a bald-headed baby. Well, it's true, I said. I did. But he calls Gloria Dump a witch all the time, and he calls Otis retarded. Now remember, that's a word we don't use. And once he even said that his mama said, I shouldn't spend all my time with old ladies. That's what he said. Well, I think you should apologize, said the preacher. Me? I said. Yes, he said, you tell Stevie you're sorry if you said anything that hurt his feelings. I'm sure he just wants to be your friend. I don't think so, I told him. I don't think he wants to be my friend. Well, some people have a strange way of going about making friends, he said. Now you apologize. Yes, sir, I said. Then I remembered Carson. Daddy, I said, do you know anything about Amanda Wilkinson? Well, what kind of thing? Do you know something about her and somebody named Carson? Oh, Carson was her brother. He drowned last year. He's dead? Yes, said the preacher. His family is still suffering a great deal. How old was he? 5, said the preacher. He was only 5 years old. Oh, Daddy, I said, how could you not tell me about something like that? Well, other people's tragedies should not be the subject of idle conversation. There was no reason for me to tell you. Well, it's just that I needed to know, I said, because it helps explain Amanda. No wonder she's so pinch-faced. What's that? Said the preacher. Oh, nothing, I said. See, again, why you really shouldn't judge people, because Opal was thinking, gosh, she's just so nasty, that pinch-faced Amanda Wilkinson. Opal didn't realize what she was going through, but it makes good sense why she is pinch-faced, doesn't it? Good night, India Opal, the preacher said. He leaned over and kissed me, and I smelled the root beer and the strawberry and the sadness all mixed together on his breath. He patted Winn Dixie on the head and got up and turned off the light and closed the door. I didn't go to sleep right away. I lay there and thought how life was like a litmus lozenge, how the sweet and the sad were all mixed up together, and how hard it was to separate them out. It was confusing. Daddy, I shouted. After a minute, he opened the door and raised his eyebrows at me. What was that word you said, the word that meant sad? Melancholy, he said. Melancholy, I repeated. I liked the way it sounded, like there was music hidden somewhere inside it. Good night now, the preacher said. Good night, I told him back. I got up out of bed and unwrapped a litmus lozenge and sucked on it hard and thought about my mama leaving me. That was a melancholy feeling. And then I thought about Amanda and Carson, and that made me feel melancholy too. Poor Amanda. And poor Carson. He was the same age as Sweetie Pie, but he would never get to have his 6th birthday party. And that is the end of chapter 18. So you know you'll be doing your chapter summary, chapter 18, with a sentence or two at the bottom, the picture at the top. I love, some of you have been like coloring the pictures and just doing such a beautiful job. It makes it so much fun to look at. And appreciate when you press kind of hard with your pencil because it's hard to read them. I have these old eyes, you all. I tell you, I have to look really hard to be able to see what you've read. So I love the coloring. I love when you've pressed hard with the pencil. It just makes it easier for me to read. And we know we want to make my life easy. I'm the one handing out the grades. Remember? Okay, so tomorrow we'll be reading chapter 19, okay? Or not tomorrow, because tomorrow's Wednesday. But on Thursday, if you're sticking with me and my schedule, we'll be reading chapter 19 on Thursday, okay? I hope you have a fabulous day. I hope you're being safe and healthy and just sweet little kiddos for Mom and Dad. I'll see you soon. Bye.